Welcome, everybody. And today we're going to be talking to Anik Lammel. Anik is a student of mine in my Agile project management course and my leadership course in NYU graduate program of project management. I would love everybody to know a little bit about you.
Thank you so much for having me. Well, yeah, I'm Anik. I'm 23 years old. I come from Florence, Italy. My mom's German, my dad's American. So that's a bit of context. And basically, I moved into the city to pursue my master in project management at NYU. And I decided also to take my PMP while I was doing the master. And now I'm safe to say that I'll be graduating soon. So it's been a very nice journey. I've met a lot of interesting people, and I've also somehow managed to secure a job right now. I'm in construction and store planning currently, and the certification, I think, gave me a good confidence boost on the fact that I will be able to do it.
And congratulations for your new job and
Thank you.
your continued success. You've been always a great student in my class, so I really appreciate you coming and joining this podcast today.
Of
Now, I
course.
wanted to really go a little bit deeper into something you did recently. You've been an accomplished author. You also have this PMP that you just got, and you have a master's, or you will be getting a master's soon. You will you also went for your PMP. Why is that? What made you sign up?
Um, I think, well, since when I started with NYU, teachers right off the bat started talking about how important the certification is and how important it is to pursue not just a master, but of course, other additional things. And I think I was willing, mostly I was encouraged to do it because there was also a PMP prep course with NYU. So that was really good to take that as well. Of course, I'm still a student, have been a student. So I'm in that student mode mindset. So learning my brain is right now up to speed with how to learn and all the processes of taking a test. So I think this was a good time to take the test because I'm going to be soon just a professional, not a student anymore. So yeah, that's basically what pushed me the most. So having teachers learning about it, I got into the PMI organization, went to some of their meetings, and then also their people were encouraging me to take it and just try. It's always something good to have. And so I basically thought, why not?
Great. Awesome. I'm sure it's going to do wonders for you and your resume. A lot of people want to commit to it, but many a times when they go through it, they drop off. You stuck with it and you went through it. What made you do that?
I think it's been maybe 2 years now that every time I think I should do this, I don't. And I just go directly into I'm doing this. I've been saying yes to a lot of things in the past 2 years, say. And since I've changed that mindset of like not letting my fears of failing or whatever, just trying. And of course, the more things you try, the more things you can accomplish because the more things you will fail, but also the amount of things that you will pass or accomplish are higher more things you try, of course. And one of the things that mainly brought me into this mindset was I've always wanted to volunteer. And so basically, I was at a moment, I think around 2, 3 years ago, where I just wanted to do it. So I woke up one morning, I told my mom, I said, I'm planning a trip, I'm going to go volunteer, and I'm going to start to do this. And since I did that trip, that was basically the turning point to applying to NYU, moving to New York within a span of time that was like, I decided to move to New York, the other side of the world, because I was living in Italy my whole life in 5 months. And so I don't know, adapting the mindset of just do it and don't be afraid to. If you have the way to do it, just do it. Like don't think, oh, if this goes wrong, then that. I think we're human beings and somehow we all have that capacity to figure things out as they go. And you're never going to be able to plan everything perfectly. So I feel I'm really not kidding. Like, I don't know. It's so important to just go out and do things. And now I have people telling me, oh, how did you do this? And honestly, my answer is I have no idea. I just said yes and started doing it from some way. And then somehow a couple of months later, you accomplish things and then it's great.
Okay, so when did you say yes to PMP?
I said yes to PMP, I think in the beginning when I started with NYU around October-ish when I went to my first PMI meeting and then talking to professors, and it was just a thing, okay, I will do it within this year. I will have to do it. I'm taking the prep course. Why not? And if whatever reason goes wrong or anything, it doesn't matter. You try.
Excellent. You are also an accomplished author. Talk to us about your book, introduce it, and tell our audience what made you write this book.
So it's basically a diary on my time volunteering in Ghana, in Africa. And the reason I wrote it, it was not supposed to be a book, or I was not, it was just a thing that I needed for myself to keep me grounded because the experience I had, I think, was a little out of the normal experience. I was just put in this reality with extreme poverty, living without any water, without any electricity, in a tent, basically for about a month and a half. And that was very
Wow.
challenging because if you think of all the amenities we have here, and even just to be able to take a shower, like that was not a thing there. You couldn't. The water was the water from the river. That's the water we showered with. And there was no special treatment for me just because I was
Hmm.
not living in the village. And there were people who had actually never even seen a person of white skin color. So there were babies yelling and crying at me because they were scared, which I mean makes sense. It's a place where it's not even connected by cars. To reach the village, you have to go through all these dirt streets. So I needed something to feel connected to my reality because, of course, once you're there, it seems so long. You say, "Oh, I have to be here for a month and a half." That's a long time in the present moment, of course, not looking back. That's not nothing. But so then I just kept a diary every day, wrote down my thoughts, what I was feeling, and decided to pursue it more of a thing that, okay, this is like my personal experiment. And then when I came home, I showed my mom read my diary, and she said you should definitely write it and put it into form of a book. So I have it right here. And yeah, it has some pictures. It's just I decided to write it down exactly the way I had wrote it down originally. There's no big changes because I feel that preserves the bubble and shows exactly all the emotions that I was going through.
Okay. For our audience, this book is available on Amazon and the link will be in the description below. So, Anik, one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast with you is really go deep into PMP and your study plan and really understand it from your preparation perspective. Why? Because I think there are in NYU and otherwise, there are lots of students looking to still do the PMP and want some help from a perspective of the student, from somebody who's just taken it. So let's start with the first question I have about your study plan. So what was it? How much time you allocated to it? And given your busy schedule with NYU, how did you manage to accomplish it?
So I think I started studying the moment I literally set foot into NYU and we started classes because all of the subjects are basically what is talked about during the exam and what you have to know. So say if we're looking at a timeline, I started in September, and then I started the prep course in October. So that was the most intense part where we actually went through the questions and started getting familiar with the exam. And that went until December, basically. And then I subscribed to a study hall that they have, but they also have a bunch of AIs that create exam samples, exams, so you can just exercise on that. And that was basically, I think, one of the most important things was to get familiar with the exam because you have to understand the concept. But most of the time, the exam asks you for specific things that it's not asking you for the correct answer because most of the time, a lot of answers are correct. But
Mhm.
you really have to understand what the exam wants to know from you in that given situation. So I feel you just have to enter into this mindset. So it is, of course, about specific things that you know. You need to know what a Gantt chart is. You need to know what a Kanban board. You need to know for what to use different things. You need to know the difference between traditional, agile, hybrid. You need to know these things. But once you understand the main concepts, it's all about really reading the questions and figuring out what the question is asking you. So, I mean, yeah, so basically I started in September and then now it's May. So I've been on and off like taking the practice exam, practice questions, and then going to classes, of course, talking the like basically weekly talks about project management the whole time because you go to class
Yeah.
every so For sure, all of this help being surrounded by this project management mindset and by people, professionals who now teach, such as you.
Okay. You mentioned study materials. You mentioned the
Mhm.
prep course. You mentioned study hall. Tell us a little bit about all the study materials that you used and which ones would you recommend and which ones would you say, it was not worth it?
Honestly, I would recommend any exam or any practice question that there is, because that is the main thing that will help you. Of course, if you're able to purchase the book, that's good. But in general, something that you can get completely for free that I found so helpful, all the YouTube videos. Like go on YouTube, Google PMP exam prep questions. And then there's people who go through all of the single questions and really explain to you how to answer them. And also, while of course they're answering, they explain to you some important theoretical concepts that go along with the PMP. So I found the YouTube videos incredibly helpful. I took notes while I was
Mhm.
watching them, so it wasn't just like watching those 2 hours, a 5 hour process, because you
Yeah.
stop and you write down and you understand and you really look at them. And so you don't you don't have to necessarily subscribe to anything or buy anything. Like you can have there's so much on YouTube that honestly really helped me a lot. So I'd say that was my main thing, cuz also hearing people talk about it, if you don't go to class or if you don't have teachers, learning through hearing and even just having it in the background, I don't know, while you cook, have someone talk about it. It's
Yeah.
good. It's a good practice. It teaches you a lot.
As I know, the PMP is split into people, processes, and business environment, and they have different percentages. Did you allocate enough time for each, or did you allocate based on the percentages, or in general, you went through everything?
In general, I went through everything because it's all about the reaching that critical thinking. So, understanding all of I don't know, the mindset and the approaches that you have to take as a project manager, because it's basically telling you how you approach different situations. Of course, for me, it was not of course, but for me, it was easier to, all the people and business environment questions were simpler because I think I've reached that idea of what the test is asking and how to approach different situations and the critical mindset. I reached it a little
Hmm.
faster than, let's say, the process part, which was a bit more technique and a bit more learning all the definitions and, for example, fast tracking, or all of these things that you have to know, and you have to know what to resort to in different situations, because maybe two things that can seem the same have actually play two different roles, and one saves you so much more time and the other one takes way longer, but they both have the same outcome, but you have to evaluate all of those things. So I think in the beginning I just went through the whole thing, and then after a while I focused a little more on process because I knew that that was my.
The largest percentage. So, in our class in Agile, we talk about plan and predict, and we also talk about sense and respond. Plan and predict being the traditional method, and
Yeah.
Agile being the sense and respond. And of course, there is hybrid. Was there anything that you were more inclined towards or more stronger at versus the other? And what made you do that?
It's a good question. No, I think I was mainly. That's a good question. Honestly, I think I am mostly inclined to adapting more agile method just because of the fact that it's a continuous improvement of every single step of the way. And it is tailored to every specific situation as compared to maybe a more traditional method, which has some fixed steps that you take to achieve and accomplish a goal. I think it's really important in Agile the fact that you continuously get feedback and you can continuously improve your method or your product or your service and just like continuously work on it. I think that's also a personality thing, like whether you're a more I don't know, a person that is more inclined to doing things in steps and correctly
Mhm.
um process everything in a timeline that is decided and well organized and every detail is fixed, as compared to a person that's maybe more hands on and trying to figure out, okay, let's see how this works. So this is working well. Okay, let's add this, and adopting a more problem solving mindset, let's say, which adapts to different situations. So I think, yeah, it comes down to the person that you are.
Let's talk about it during the exam. So, before we get into that, I know you picked the in person, but there's also a virtual option to take the test.
Mhm.
What do you think are benefits or pros and cons between the two? And why did you choose the in-person one?
I think I chose the in-person one. I'm gonna start with that because basically in person, it gave me a bit more security. I feel if you're doing it from home or from a remote location and something happens, say, I don't know, your computer breaks down or you don't look in the right direction or for some reason, you bend over your chair in a way that's like not accepted, then any little thing, of course, will trigger the system because nobody's there to actually look at you and to see if you're what you're doing. So you may be with the like not trying to do anything in a harmless way, change your position or something, and then 3 minutes later your exam is cut off because they think that you were cheating. So that was the main reason why I decided to do it in person. Also, because there's something comforting of going somewhere where there's a lot of people taking an exam. They do it in these test centers, so not everybody's taking the same exam. It's possible that nobody's taking your exam, but everybody is has the same feeling. So it's kind of it's a good community environment. I don't know. That gave me a sense of more security, and I felt more confident in taking the exam.
So the exam itself is about 180 questions, 230 minutes. How did you pace yourself during this long time, and especially now in person?
I took all the breaks I could take. So there's two breaks because it's 60, 60, 60 questions. 2 10-minute breaks. I walked around. I went to the bathroom. I drank water. I tried to deconnect. Although, of course, in those 10 minutes, your brain is not going to completely disconnect and everything. But it's good to have your brain just reset a moment, refocus, because it's intense to stare at a computer and take the exam for that long, and that can be maybe one of the reasons why people put it off so long because it's a long test to do and you need a lot of concentration while you're doing it, and every single question deserves the same amount of attention. Yeah, taking those breaks and not being afraid to take the breaks and ask, I want to stand up and can I go here, that really helped, I think, refocus and walking around a little bit. So that would be my biggest advice: to take the question and read every single question in the same way that you read the previous one. So not go over one just because you think, oh, I know this one, this is fast. Like actually focus on everything and then take the breaks and drink water, a lot of water.
What about the question specifically to deal with stakeholder management, with servant leadership, with emotional intelligence? Now, you mentioned the exam or the test expects you to know a certain way of answering them versus you might do something else at work on these topics. How did you handle those?
It can be very triggering to think that an answer is correct, but the exam actually gives you another answer as correct.
Mhm.
And I think one of the main things that helped me with that was all the practice exams to figure out what the test is actually stating as correct. Honestly, I think, well, of course, if you have to be a good project manager by heart. Of course, a certification is only going to do as much for you as it can because you have to know it's all about a company hires you. They don't hire your certification, they don't hire your piece of paper. They hire you and how you think about things. So, having the basis and knowing what is technically right to do is extremely important because that's where you base your decisions off of,
Mhm.
but also having that critical mindset to question the exam questions. I think that's a very important thing that kind of automatically grows into you and into the way you approach things because you learn how to actually think like a project manager and you learn how to tackle different situations. So I think it's important to understand what the exam is asking you for the exam. Once you have those bases, once you understand what the correct thing is and what the obvious not correct thing is, like for example, never do nothing as a project manager. Always talk to everybody. Always take the most visual and hands-on thing that you can do as a project manager. Always include your team because that's really important. So there's these small things that you need to do, that you need to know that those are the right and those are the wrong ways to do things. But all the rest, I think it's very subjective and it depends on the situation and on the exact project that you're working on. So yeah, it's all about the critical mindset, basically.
So lots of practice.
Lots of practice. Yeah.
Okay. It was a long exam, you took breaks, you did it in a sustainable pace. Anytime you felt rattled, maybe because you ran out of time, maybe because there was a question that was like, is it this or is it that? And how did you manage that?
I think that was a constant thought during the entire exam. It's always, I think multiple choice is always that tricky. Like it's never like you read a question, you're like, oh, it's this for sure. Because of course there's always so many right answers, so many wrong answers, and there's just one answer you can choose. So I think during the entire exam I was a bit triggered by the questions. Also because like when you really deeply try to understand something, your brain, the more you read, the more it travels and the more it starts thinking about different things that you can do. So I think the way that I got over it or tried to work through it, I flagged questions that I thought, okay, I want to go back to this one. I want
Yeah.
to remember that this one I was not so sure about. And then most of all, I trusted all the months of learning and all the things that I had done, and I trusted my brain to figure out I think a lot of times, not always, so don't think it's always like that. It's not automatic. But a lot of times when you read a question and you have a lot of training or a lot of knowledge about something, the first question that you think is right, the first answer that you think is right is often the one that your brain connects to more. I don't know. The one that your brain thinks it's right, the first one, tends to be the right one. The more you think about it, the more your brain travels and the more it might say, maybe not, maybe this one. So I trusted a lot the whole process that I went through and I said, okay, I can answer this. Like my brain is capable, it's trained, it knows the things. And then of course the ones that I wanted to think about a little longer, I flagged and then I went back to them and then started thinking about it more. But mostly just trust yourself. I mean, you're sitting down there, you got this, you can do it. You're a smart cookie. You've studied for it for sure. I don't think anybody sits down without having done anything and just being like, "Hmm." And if you pass it that way, I mean, wow. But yeah,
So looking back, at what you did and you got your success, was there anything that you would change in your preparation now that you know what you know?
I would start looking at YouTube videos sooner because it's something that I found out or that I researched like a month before the exam, and I think they were so useful to have someone explaining the questions. That was one of the most important things I think, aside to of course lectures, also because the more I hear the more I learn. I'm a hearing learning person, so yeah, discovering the YouTube videos, I would want to look at that or put in that research sooner. But besides that, I think not much. Just never doubt yourself. Don't be afraid to sign up for the exam.
There's lots of different topics like governance, procurement, mentoring teams. Were there any surprises in some of the questions you prepared for and they never, or a topic you prepared for and that never showed up?
I think the test pretty much covered everything. I was looking at, and in one of the videos, this one guy who explains everything said that, of course, it depends a lot on the algorithm and the questions that come up to you. So it's possible that you get quizzed on a more specific subject and more
Mhm.
questions about that come up. But I feel mine was pretty much it covered every single thing that I had prepared for. Something that didn't come up, honestly, everything came up. Like there were definitions, there were mindset questions, there were leadership questions. It was I think the exam was really accurate in representing everything, every single aspect of things. There was a lot of agile, traditional, maybe more agile, probably maybe more than traditional. It focused on agile, but it was a lot about the comparison between the two.
Okay. If so, some people say that PMP is a credential on paper. Now that you've received it or you've got it, how do you feel? And what advice would you give to someone who's, should I take it? Should I not take it?
I think it gives you, at least it gave me, a nice confidence boost. So it's a good, of course, it's just a piece of paper. It's not gonna break or make anything. It's a piece of paper. It's a certification. But I think it's a really good add on because it gives you the confidence to be okay. I can do this. I understand the mindset that you need to adopt. I know how to tackle different situations. I know what to do in case of this, in case of that.
Uh-huh.
So it it gives you, I don't know, it gave me a lot of confidence, honestly. And a lot of, yeah, just like realization that everything that I've learned, everything that I've done, it's a good summary in our master's program. You know, you take classes and then you have an exam at the end of that class and then you move on to the next class. This is a whole summary of everything that you pretty much learn in all of the classes. So it's a good thing to set the record straight and be like, okay, I know all of these things. I've heard that in that class and I learned that and that. Okay, so what do? I compare them. Okay, so it gives you that full picture on everything.
Yeah.
And it puts together everything. And as I said, it covers pretty much every single part of project management. So yeah, I think it's a good thing that really gives you the confidence to tackle different situations and to be also to know how to respect your team, but also be a good leader and confident in your choices.
Okay. One last question. Is there a tactical tip that you would give someone on exam day?
Okay. Well, first, take breaks during the
Mhm.
exam, drink water. Don't worry about, if you're going through the exam and you say, "Oh, I'm taking too much time in this section." Each section is different. There are questions that take more time, there are questions that take less time. For example, my first section was my second fastest. The second section is the one that took me the longest, and then the third section was the one that I completed the fastest. So don't look at time. You have time. Don't worry. Don't stress about that. And take the breaks. The breaks don't count as time, so always do that. And then, of course, the simple things that as a project manager, never do nothing. Always, every time you see like a superlative, so like all and always and perfect and whatever, it's probably not that question because it's never a superlative answer. And then keep it simple within your team. So always team collaborate and look for their input. You're not, you're a servant leader. You're not uh, a person that says, okay, do this, do that, do that. No, you want to listen to your team. And then always, always, this is the only superlative that you can have in-person activities if you're not dealing with cross-cultural teams. So if you have people that are in the same office, always focus on in-person activities. So every time there's like, you're going to see it in the questions. And also, my last tip would be just do it. Like, you're never going to know everything. It's impossible to know everything. You never know everything. You never feel 100% secure. I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who's like, oh, yeah, I got this. I know everything. So just, trust your mind. It's all about mindset.
I would like everybody to actually go and buy your book. So why would they buy your book and what value would they get?
I think it's all about understanding different perspectives. And this is my perspective on the world. We are absorbed in our bubble in which we have a roof over our heads and that's basically and water and that's normal. Like that's not something that you would ever put in discussion. We have all the amenities that we want, whatever we want in one day delivery, it's coming, it's there. And only say 30% of the population in the world lives like we do. Maybe even only 10% depending on what population you are in and what social status you have. But the amount of people that live like described in this book. So, where water is not a regular thing, where a roof over your head is not promised, it's not automatic. It's not like you're born in a house in which you have those things. So I think it's so important for us to broaden our horizons and not be afraid of what's different and not be afraid also to experience it. And I think one thing that is good about this book is that it's not rewritten. This is going to show you the exact bubble that I was in and the exact feeling that I had. And I would wish on everybody to experience something like that once in your life. Because I said it's only a month. A month is going to be long in that period, but it's going to be so short in your life. And it's going to have such an impact on you because you're really going to understand so many things about the world and about how we live. So if you want to get this broader perspective, if you want to read a fun book it's this big, it's not long, and it's written in a very familiar language style. So it's easy to read. And it just takes you on the journey that I was on and maybe encourages you to take that journey.
Mm.
Okay, the title is Obwadaka, and that is the village that I was in Ghana. And then it's written from Florence to the red dusty roads. Ghana through the eyes of a 22-year-old. Because now I'm 23, but I was 22.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful ideas and inspiring so many future students that might be taking the PMP or might be on their journey to the PMP. I really appreciate you and I really appreciate the amazing work that you've done. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you for having me. This has been great. And I hope to have other people do the same. Take your PMP. Don't be afraid to do so.
Excellent.